Oh, hi, everybody. My name is Matt Storrs, and welcome to Mattsplaining. On today's episode, I have an expert on who I'm very excited to speak with. Expert, please introduce yourself and tell us what you're an expert in.
Sure. Hi, my name is Gigi Bella, and I am an expert on Swifties, on being a Swiftie, on Swiftyism, the religion of Swiftie. I am a professional Swiftie. I make Eras Tour outfits in my home and sell them to girls across the world, and have been a Swiftie myself since I was about 15. I have attended the Eras Tour and I care very much about our Lord and Savior, Mother Taylor Swift. I'm also the 10th ranked woman poet in the world and a professional performer. But today I am an expert on Swifties.
Absolutely fantastic. I feel like I am in a very interesting position in the people that I have befriended in my life, many of them Swifties, Swiftie adjacent. And I think it's very fascinating that you mention it as a religion. A lot of people don't know this, but Taylor Swift's parents have a Christmas tree farm. And what they did to help bankroll her career initially was sell extra trees, and they were one of the main proponents of like the clippings on trees, how they'll make them into wreaths and stuff like that. One of the innovations that they did as a company, as a Christmas tree farm, was to start selling the clippings themselves in bags, selling them to potpourri shops and stuff like that, so you could get that pine, that kind of Christmas tree smell all throughout the year. And that really, really helped them put an influx of money to make sure that Taylor Swift got out there. But it also brought them in connection with a lot of Christian and other denominations, kind of the big umbrella of Christianity. And they realized that there were a lot of similarities between Taylor and various deities, demigods throughout history, such as Jesus, such as like the name of the Egyptian escapes me, but Greek gods as well. So Heracles and these sorts of things, and Perseus and these sorts of things, very similar to Perseus in a lot of ways. Kind of this, Perseus, a fisherman, Taylor Swift in another life is a Christmas tree farmer. And then she's thrust upon the world to stop the destruction of our society through the negativity, the disconnection to emotion, more broad themes than maybe those kind of Greek myths. And that's an absolutely fantastic thing because she's been able to diversify and build her heroic epic, so to speak, over time and create a devoted set of fans. Even people that she only met briefly, people that maybe were like on a youth trip with her, were well taken. I once briefly dated a pastor who had known Taylor Swift. We actually were going on a date not too far from one of Taylor Swift's residences here in New York City. And they relayed to me, like, I believe they had done some sort of event, but they're like, yeah, Taylor is for a couple of years before she got too busy. She was very insistent on communicating and checking in and everything like that. And I didn't, get the opportunity to see that pastor too many times. They ultimately ghosted me, or as I like to call it, they touched me, but with the Holy Spirit. And
They
so
Holy Ghosted you.
yeah, they Holy Ghosted me. The thing is with Taylor Swift, these Swifties, it's not necessarily a political movement, but it's a like-mindedness. It's a shared collectiveness of people being able to tap into their emotions, tap into things that people for years and years people have been told, act your age, you have to live a certain way. And Taylor Swift says, no, you don't. You have to embrace who you are. You have to embrace and pierce through the emotional dynamics that you're feeling, whether it's because a relationship is ended, because you have a fallout with your friends, whether or not you have unrequited love for your girlfriends, and you have to create an elaborate kind of dogma and research field about the possibility of your orientation, or just for people that like alternate reality games where they want to be obsessed with somebody. They want to have that cool girl, that person that they're kind of infatuated with, that they want to know everything about. and that allows them through researching that person to learn about themselves. And I think that that's a beautiful thing that we don't always have access to in our society. Now, based on what you've heard so far, about how much of that would you say was accurate?
I would say like a fair amount
Okay.
is pretty accurate. I would say A to F. I would probably give you a C. I think that the Christmas tree farm fact, like starting off with that, gold star.
Well, thank
That's
you.
not a lot of people know that, and that is actually true. Her family did own a Christmas tree farm and use much of that money to start her career as a youth. The fact that she is a deity dating back to ancient times and reminiscent of historical deities, I think you could interpret that a lot of ways. It could be
Hmm.
true. I think that a lot of people got really upset when she was on the Eras tour and she came out right when she was doing the first shows and people were
Hmm.
starting to see videos on the internet. She had a number that she was doing called Willow, and she would come out in this big cloak
Hmm.
and there were dancers all around her holding these like orbs of light, and it was this like very witchy seancey number, and there were tons of Christians the world over who were like, Taylor Swift is the devil and she's
Oh
using this
no.
concert to bring devil worshiping to young people, and we need to cancel our Eras tour tickets and not support her because she is worshiping Satan. So I think that she might be a deity like on the other side.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
She's
and
got some dark.
yeah, I mean, and it sounds like if she really wanted to, she has the creative cachet to do much more than just like effectively pull off druidic ceremonies. It's like in a concert setting. If she wanted, she could go full guar.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, one of my favorite things from that like number was when she went to Mexico in the stadium. The floor was huge. It was a
Hmm.
massive, massive stadium. And there were people who had floor tickets who were like way, way, way pushed to the back, which you're trying to see over all these people and you can kind of see the screens, but it's a little harder to see her. And it's like staring across a big giant football field.
Hmm.
And so there were people in the back and they were making fairy circles. They were they were doing their own little seances
Oh wow,
at the
that's so
back of
cool.
the concert and gathering. And when I went to the Eras Tour movie with my husband and my brother and my mom was not a Swiftie. She didn't get it. My brother and I had gone to the
Hmm.
Eras Tour in LA. We were there the night that they filmed, one of the nights for the movie. And we were so excited to get to just like share that experience. We went in IMAX and the theater was packed, and it was like every kind of person from every walk of life that you could imagine in that room here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And there had been videos all over TikTok of people going to these screenings and like having a dance party out in
Hmm.
front of the screen or just like doing the fairy circle or whatever it was. And it was just really pure. So I don't know what came over me, but when she did Willow in the movie, I grabbed my brother and I grabbed my husband and we ran down to the front and we started a fairy circle, and nobody
Hell
had
yeah.
been dancing up at the front before that point. And then before we knew it, there were just little girls and teenagers and all these people bum rushing the front, and the circle got so big we were having to do these big huge gallops to like we were sweating by the end of
Oh,
it
that's
because
fantastic.
there were so many people and we were all just holding hands and doing fairy circle. And then after that it became a whole different experience because people felt comfortable to come down and to dance and to enjoy it and to treat it like a concert, and we just had the best time. So that's the kind of Satan worship I like to participate in personally. I think it's really, really fun. When she did Look What You Made Me Do, and there's that famous line. She says, the old Taylor can't come to the phone right now.
Hmm.
Why? Because she's dead. All of us were up at the front going nuts, and there were about 30 like 7-year-old girls. And I have this video that's incredible. I will have to send it to you when we're done.
Hmm.
It's a requirement because it's maybe
Okay.
the best video in my phone. But we're all up there and you can see the whole crowd. And you can just hear all these 7-year-old girls. And she goes, why? And then the whole room goes, because she's dead. And they start freaking out. Very satanic. And I love it. I think it's beautiful. Society could mean a lot of things. I think that's like not far off. I also think the emotional landscape of Taylor Swift is obviously like really important.
Hmm.
I think that's what makes her matter to so many people. I think that's also a lot to put on one person the way that it has been put on her. I try to think about the fact that she is a person
Right.
a lot, just like with this weight kind of on her. It's really, there's a lot of layers to that for me as a Mexican Swiftie, as a person of color within the fandom, which I can talk about more later. But it's a it's a highly emotional space, which I think
Right.
lends itself to people kind of seeing the fandom and being like, oh, they're crazy. They're way over the top. They're the most. And I don't think that judgment is like off, but I don't think it's necessary either. I think it's a beautiful thing, like to be in a space with strangers. I remember my therapist is also a Swiftie.
Right.
So that's been really cool because she did go to the Eras tour. And when I came back, we had almost 2 full sessions where we just talked. She was like, so how was it? Tell me all about it. Tell me everything. Tell me all your feelings. And we just both expressed this feeling of like, it was like the safest place we had ever been because there was just this air of like purity, and everybody just wants to trade bracelets with you. And these are things that they sat in their homes and like handmade, and they pick out a specific one from you, or they pick a specific one for you based on what you're wearing or what you say in the merch line or whatever it is. And it's really personal and
Hmm.
it's really pure. And then you're in the midst of the concert, and there's a moment that I think about a lot when she sings All Too Well, the 10-minute version. That is a song about losing your virginity at a young age to a much older man, to a
Hmm.
much older person who kind of effectively took advantage of you. And there were girls all around me, just, I mean, weeping, bawling, crying. And you could just tell that they were like really held in that space. And it was cathartic, and it was a moment of collective like processing and then immediate joy that followed right after, dancing and singing to something else. And my therapist said, it felt like the kind of place where you could like lose your kid and you'd know that they would be safe.
Absolute. That's an
um
amazing articulation. I feel that's so spot on.
yeah, it just was like you just wouldn't worry about it, like everybody was just there in this kind of cloud together. And I think with the Barbie summer and the Eras tour, there was this real like, I think that so much of womanhood and girlhood is about nurturing, but we don't get to do it for ourselves. And I think this was an opportunity to be like, what if we did?
Right.
What if we just like nurtured ourselves and nurtured like this part of other people just existing fully? What if we just watered that ground? What would it look like? And it was a really like, I feel like the world has not known peace like that since Pokemon Go, if I'm honest. I
Yeah.
feel, yeah, we were all just like really like, oh, I gotta go do my gym. And like, it was great. This was kind of like that. Like, it was super pure. I think it's become a little more layered
Hmm.
coming out of it. And I've felt every kind of emotion on the spectrum being a Swiftie. So the good ones, like I have a very nuanced relationship with all of it, which I think is what makes me an expert,
Hmm.
honestly. I think a lot of folks just like unabashedly 100% love her and support everything she does, and they don't talk about the complexities of like personhood. They ignore it, or they want to brush it off or whatever. Some people are wildly fanatic, which can be harmful. And I think approaching it from a personal standpoint is like the only way to go. The emotionality is at the core. I always think it's really interesting whenever I meet other people of color who are Swifties, because inherently it kind of seems like a space that isn't for us. It's a very white womany kind of space. It's a very white feminism prevalent kind of space. And that can be really, really daunting and really frustrating at times and really kind of scary at times. But there's also this like communal corner of it. So when she went to Mexico, I'm the kind of person that like I watch all the live streams when she's on tour. I'm aware that today is the 100th show of the Eras tour, and we're all waiting to see if there's going to be a big surprise. I know
Hmm.
what she wears every time she goes out there. I was watching all the videos when she went to Mexico, and that just really like hit my heart because it was all people who looked like me. And there's this moment right after Champagne Problems where the audience cheers, and these cheers had been going on the tour for like 6 minutes, 8 minutes, just an unprecedented amount of time. And she would just kind of take it all in. And they started a chant in Mexico and they said, Taylor, hermana, ya eres mexicana. You are our sister. And basically, like, you're an honorary Mexican.
Oh,
Uh,
it's
and
so beautiful. I almost
it was
started
so
crying.
it was so it was so precious, like it meant so much to me. And I watched videos over and over again of the chant, and I was just in my house crying. And like I started really thinking about like why that is and why we connect with her so much, even though like we're very different. All of us are very different. And I think she just taps into something within like the scope of humanism that manages to be so micro and macro at the same time that we all feel like she's our best friend. And
Right.
it's insane to feel that like cross culturally. I think when I was a kid, she was a country star.
Hmm.
And I remember my parents calling me into their room. They're big country music fans still. And I was kind of raised on country music, which seems odd knowing me now. But
Hmm.
I listened to a lot of country music, and they brought me into their room and they were like, we want you to watch this video of this girl. And it was Taylor Swift, and it was the music video for Tim McGraw. And they were like, look, she's as old as you.
Hmm.
And at that point, I had been playing guitar for a very smallish amount of time. I really wanted to write songs. I was a songwriter before I was ever any other kind of writer. And the fact that she wrote all her own songs was a really, really big deal to me. Our song, which was like probably her first big, like acclaimed hit, was the first song I learned how to play on the guitar, like all the way through.
Hmm.
And that Christmas, my parents saved all their money. They saved up a bunch of money to buy me this guitar that I still have hanging on the wall in my apartment right now. And it is a glitter pink guitar that is like a replica of one she had at the time and would play at shows.
So
Um,
great. That's such a good
and
gift.
yeah, and I think like the idea that Taylor's kind of this symbol of like my parents believing in me
Hmm.
and all the things I could be, and seeing this young person and being like, hey, we have a young person and I bet she could be somebody. I bet if we gave her the tools, she could make it happen. It really like it meant a lot to me, and it changed my life pretty finitely. And I've kind of fallen in and out with my relationship with Taylor. I have a degree in American Studies with a focus in popular culture. And
Hmm.
at the time when I was in college, she was being really heavily critiqued. I do think that there are things I would say if I could sit her down and just have a chat about navigating cultural biases and things like that. I think that my poet friend Andrea Gibson has this really great quote, and they say, if we could all learn to be gracefully wrong, what a different place the world would be. And I think that people deserve room to make mistakes and to grow. And I feel like she's not really given that. And when I was in college, we weren't giving her that at all. People were just
Hmm.
ripping her to shreds. So I kind of was like, oh, it's not okay for me to support this person or to like this person or what have you. And then in 2020, Folklore came out, and it was very reminiscent of like the early songs that she would
Hmm.
write. And I kind of found myself back in that like 15-year-old glitter guitar space and remembering like why I started doing any of it in the first place. And I fell back into this like relationship with her. And I think that within the fandom, especially also making these outfits for other young women, I do interact with a lot of white Swifties. I believe, as far as I know, I am the only person of color who is a small business currently selling and creating outfits.
Hmm.
And I do think that that has an effect sometimes on how I am treated. I have been like really disrespected. I have had people be not so nice. I have had moments where I've had to be like, okay, like there are these people who exist within this. Like it's not all just fairy circles. Like we're
Right.
still people who need to acknowledge that we're people and attempt to grow and be called on our things. But I'm happy to be that person in the space who's like, hey, you can't treat people that way. That's not all
Absolutely.
right. And I don't really think that that's what Taylor stands for. So if you're really claiming this too, don't be like that. Just like be better. I think
Absolutely.
that Taylor has had some trouble navigating the space between white women and people of color. And I think as a Mexican Swiftie, that can be hard. But I also like do really treasure those moments where, we're saying, yeah, eres mexicana. And I think it's really nuanced.
Right. And I think it opens up a discussion and like it's a cultural touchstone point, if that makes sense, where so many people have this shared affinity, a shared background, and a shared like just love of her music and her as a person and everything like that, that you can kind of be like, hey, we all agree on this. We all agree on our fandom. We all agree on her talent. Why can't we agree on treating each other as well as we wish other people would treat us? And I don't know if I've articulated it in the
Hmm.
most efficient way, but it just seems like it give at the minimum it gives an entry point for people to try and do better.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think that that conversation gets really complex. There's a whole layer with the Gaylors as well. Those
Hmm.
are Swifties who believe that Taylor Swift is queer
Hmm.
and that she was kind of closeted and hiding all throughout the 1989 era. She has since but re-released 1989 and in the liner notes has said that she was just really disappointed that people continued to sexualize her
Hmm.
after she stopped being the girl who has a million boyfriends. And then she was with women and they just started to sexualize those relationships. I don't think that that necessarily is a denial of queerness, but
Right.
I also don't fall into the group of people who believes it's my business to
Right.
speculate. And a lot of people, there's so much tension there that's like layered. The thing that's so interesting is like it's its own little ecosystem.
Right.
And there's every kind of person at this cross section of Swifty. But that's kind of beautiful because there's so much room, like you said, to discuss and to make change and like look at what we did, look at the billions of people who have bought tickets to the Eras tour and who have been out here transforming other people into Swifties and like the power we have. And I just kind of wonder what else we could do with that power
Uh,
because I just think like she's about as political of a figure as she can be, I think, without incurring harm, like
right.
like great danger and harm. A lot of people are doing Swifties for Palestine right
Hmm.
now, which I also am really like a big proponent of. There are a lot of people saying, hey, block her accounts. If you want to know what's going on with her, look at it through the fan accounts, but don't like contribute to the monetized stuff and all of that because she hasn't outright said anything. I
Right.
think it's hard because she has been seen out at fundraisers for Palestine. She did go to, I think it was Rami Youssef's show and donate money. Uh, but that's not an outright proclamation of anything. And it's really, again, a nuanced thing to have a relationship. I saw Chapel Rowan's performance at Governor's Ball, the videos of it over the
Hmm.
weekend. Did you catch that?
I did not.
So Chapel Rowan's amazing, amazing queer artist, amazing young woman who kind of took this finite step towards activism that was really beautiful and really stunning. And she performed for this massive, massive crowd at the Governor's Ball. Like she blew up overnight.
Hmm.
And she admitted to the crowd that she was invited to perform at the White House for Pride. And
Hmm.
she was dressed as the Statue of Liberty. And she spoke to the words that are on the plaque at the Statue of Liberty: give me your tired, give me your poor, give me your hungry. And she was like, that means freedom for trans people. That means women's rights. That means freedom for people who are oppressed and who are on land that's currently being overtaken. And she was like, when you do that, then I'll come to the White House. She declined
That's
their invitation. And she's like in her 20s. She's like 23. That was a massively incredible, like brave thing to get up there and do. That's a lot of pressure on a young person. That's
absolutely.
not anything I could have said at 23. And I think I felt really like this disappointment. I felt really like I'm trying to understand why she hasn't said anything, but I also, it feels complicated. Maybe it shouldn't, but I also like kind of sitting in that work for myself.
Absolutely. It gives you the opportunity to reflect on yourself and what ultimately everything means to you and how you are choosing to interact with everything as well. Gigi, I'm really sorry, but we are just about out of time. This has been absolutely fascinating, and I feel like I've learned so much. If people wanted to learn more about the topics you've discussed or more about you, where would you recommend that they go?
Sure. I think the best thing to do is to actually watch the live streams. And there's a wonderful live streamer who does the live streams for tips, and she kind of compiles all the videos that are happening at any given time. So if you want to kind of in real time see what's happening in the Swifty universe, you can follow Tess Bond. Her last name is Bohne, and the first name is Tess, Tess. And that's her at, I think on TikTok, she's Tess Deer, like Dear. And she streams every single Eras Tour show. Additionally, I make Swifty outfits if that's a thing that anybody wants to dance around their house in. You can find me on Instagram at GGBellaG, that's GIGIBELLAG, and on my website at ggbellapoetry.com. I'm going to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and there's some Swifty stuff in my show that I'm bringing. So if you'd like to donate to our little pool, you can find all that information on my Instagram and my website. And thank you so much, Matt. This was really, really wonderful.
Yeah, this was absolutely fantastic, and I can't thank you enough. And best of luck in and at the Fringe Festival. It's an absolute delight, and I think you're going to really enjoy it.
Thank you so much.
My name's Matt Storrs, and this has been Mattsplaining. Before we go today, I want to thank Ryan Lawson, my dear friend, for making the theme music for Mattsplaining. Ryan can be reached at beatblenderstudios@gmail.com or at Beat Blender Studios on Instagram and TikTok.